Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another modern RPG, because this time I would like to take a look at this, Shadowdark the role-playing game, or at least the quick start rules. Now this is something I've not been paying a lot of attention to, because it's an OSR style game, and I've kind of commented in the past that I'm not the biggest fan of those. But YouTube has rolled out a nice little function to me these days, where I can see what my viewers are searching for. And way more than anything else, people are searching for Shadowdark role-playing game, and I can take a hint. So I'm going to cover it. Now, having a look through it, I don't really see it as too much of an OSR. There's some elements in there, but this is very heavily 5th edition based. In fact, if you know the 5th edition rules, this is going to be very, very similar. And that's not a terrible thing to me, because the 5th edition rules are streamlined and quite fast. And while this strips away a lot of the bulk to make a very cut down OSR style game, it is still using more modern rules, and ones which will be familiar to most of the people playing these days. Now, it's available as a Kickstarter at the moment. I don't know whether this video will come out just as the Kickstarter's ending or just before. I'll link it down below anyway. And I'll link a link to get these quick start rules as well on DriveThruRPG. Now, when you download the quick start rules, you get the player's quick start guide, which I've got here. You get the Game Master quick start guide, and you get a zip file with maps for the example adventure. You get some pre-built characters that you can use and various other things to get you into the game as quickly as possible. It's very nicely done. Now, having a look through it, the artwork is all sort of old style, although it's not like artwork was from Dungeons & Dragons in the 70s, because that tended to be very sort of pencil and pen drawn, fairly unprofessional, whereas this is really professional. But the style reminds me of medieval books. So it really sets up the game quite nicely as being a sort of medieval fantasy game. Now, there's no setting in here, but we go in and straight away we're onto equipment. Basically, we've got a very sort of Games Master screen type thing in the starts of the books. The things where people will want to look. The information you will need again and again. They put it at the front so it's easy to find. It's very nicely thought out. So we've got basic gear here, with gear slots. You can carry a number of items equal to your strength stat or 10. All gear besides typical clothing fills up one gear slot. So you're kind of limited in what you can carry, although if you've got higher strength you can carry more. We talk through the turns, difficulty classes, so we can see the difficulty class levels, 9, 12, 15, 18 for extreme. They are very similar because you are rolling a d20 and you're adding your bonus from your attribute, which are very Dungeons & Dragons-like bonuses and very Dungeons & Dragons-like attributes. In fact, I think they're the same. We've got morale, which is a nice addition to the system, where if you beat a group of enemies, if you kill half of them, then they must make a morale check or they'll run away. And if there's only one enemy and you take out half his hit points, he has to make a morale check or he wants to run away. And we've got dying, which is simplified from 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Basically, it's 1d4 plus your constitution modifier with a minimum of 1. On your turn, you roll a d20. If you roll a 20, you get up. However, if you run out of rounds, you just pass away. You get a chance for other players to stabilize you, or you must roll a 20. Got movement, including climbing, which is half your speed, but you've got to make a dexterity or strength check. Falling damage, spell focuses. Spells in this system you have to make tests to do, but we'll come on to that later. But you've got your sort of focus, you can obviously be distracted. We've got a blank page. For some reason they always include this blank page, which in a PDF to me makes little sense. But I don't know, they want to separate off this quick start section to the main rules. We've got the introduction. Some artwork, copyright 2015, Dean Spencer. I'm sure I've heard that name before. It also includes material from the SRD 5.1. So this is released under the Creative Commons Attribution license. So since all the things which went on with Wizards of the Coast in January, this is based on the new version instead of the OGL. Got a contents page. Shadowdark, it's a basic RPG fantasy adventure game where you and your companions delve into buried ruins, lost cities, spider-infested forests, and even fearsome dragon lairs in search of golden glory. It's very old school in the way it's written. You're just going dungeon questing all the time. In a way that even Dungeons and Dragons didn't really do, except the red box set. But I suppose this is just an introductory version, quick start, so is very, very similar to the red box in many ways. What defines the game? How do I play? Characters, how you describe actions, movement, what rounds are, what dice. It mentions you get advantage and disadvantage the same way you do in 5th edition. So roll 2 dice and accept the higher, or roll 2 dice and accept the lower. The attributes are strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. How to make a check. You roll a d20 and add the modifier. You got hit points, where you gain hit points as you go up each level, as fairly standard. Characters at 0 HP point die in 1d4 plus constitution modifier rounds. Dead characters are retired from play. As I said, the artwork's very evocative of medieval times, but is obviously fantasy work. It's very nicely done. Then we're on to characters. So it talks through the different sections, but we'll go through these. So you've got backgrounds. You randomly roll on them. You can start up, you grew up as an urchin, or you could be a noble chirurgeon knowing anatomy, surgery, and first aid. Obviously, these aren't related to any kind of skills because there are no skills in the game, but this gives you background stuff that you can ask for advantage on or a bonus in play because it's part of your background. Your attributes, you roll 3d6. Now, this is a very old school game in the fact that everything's dice rolls. There's no points by, nothing like that. I don't particularly like it because I know my personal luck. If I ride on luck, I will roll bad every time. So I much prefer points by. But if you want to go for that, very nice. We've got the modifiers here. So 12, 13 is a +1, 18 plus is a +4. We've got the ancestry. So what race you are. It doesn't really matter what your attributes are. In this version, unlike early versions of Dungeons and Dragons, you can choose to be anything you want. There aren't any limits. But we've got dwarves who have their languages. They are stout. They start with a bonus 2 hit points, and they roll with advantage on their hit points. So if they're a fighter and rolling 2d6, for example, or rolling a d6 rather, they'll roll 2d6 and take the higher. So they've always got advantage. So they're always getting more hit points on average. Elves have Farsight, +1 bonus to attack with ranged weapons and +1 bonus to spellcasting checks. Goblins have keen senses and cannot be surprised. Halflings have Stealthy. Once per day they can become invisible for 3 rounds. Now this is a spell-like effect, and that's one of the things I don't like about 1D&D. They're tending to make everything into spells. So this made me kind of scowl as soon as I read it, because it's doing exactly what they're saying and doing in 1D&D, which is one of the elements I really don't like. If you're going to be a halfling and you're getting special ability, you should get that special ability. It shouldn't just be a spell-like effect. Half-orcs are mighty. They get a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls. Humans are ambitious and get to roll an additional talent at first level. And we'll come on to the talents in a second. In fact, right now, because here's the fighters. So we've got fighters get 1d8 hit points per level. They get weapon mastery, +1 to attack with one type of weapon, such as longswords. They get grit. They can choose strength or dexterity. They have advantage on all on checks of that type to overcome an opposing force, such as kicking open a stuck door, strength, or slipping free of rusty chains, dexterity. Quite nice. Hauler, they add their constitution modifier, if positive, to their gear slots. They can carry a lot more. And fighter talents. So you're rolling 2d6 at first level, or if you're a human, you're rolling it twice to get 2 talents. And every level, or sorry, every even level, or every odd level, you'll be getting that as well. So every 2 levels, you'll be getting another talent. I really fumbled my way through that, didn't I? Anyway, so For a fighter, they can gain weapon mastery with one additional weapon, so they can choose long swords and short swords. +1 to melee and ranged attacks, +2 to strength, dexterity, or constitution stat. Choose one kind of armor, they get +1 from that armor, so they can choose to have plate mail, but they'll get an additional bonus from wearing plate mail. Choose a talent or +2 points to distribute to stats. So this is very flexible because at first level you're getting one of these, so you might be a better fighter than somebody else, so your attributes might be higher. Everybody's kind of different. I do like that, especially the way that this is taken into account when you're going up levels. We've got the priest class, so they get 1d6 per level, they can turn undead, they've got a deity, they've got spell casting, they can gain advantage on one spell they know, +1 to melee or ranged attacks, +1 to priest spell casting checks, +2 to strength or wisdom stat. Choose a talent or +2 to distribute to stats. Then we've got thieves. Well, they get 1d4 per level. They've got their backstab, where they get an additional weapon dice of damage if they are attacking somebody who's unaware of their attack. So you're attacking someone who's not aware of you, you're attacking from your halfling invisibility, for example, and you're attacking with a d6 for a short sword. Well, you'll be rolling 2d6 and doing that damage. Very nice. Thievery, you've got advantage on climbing, sneaking and hiding, applying disguises, finding disabling traps, delicate tasks such as picking pockets and opening locks. And your talents gain advantage on initiative rolls. Your backstab deals +1 dice of damage, so you can be doing up to 3 dice. It actually mentions add additional weapon dice of damage equal to half your level, round down. So when you've got to 8th level, you'll be doing extra 4 dice of damage. Plus, if you've got that at least once, 5, 6, your backstab damage can be absolutely massive. Really quite interesting. +2 to strength, dexterity, or charisma. +1 to melee and ranged attacks. Choose a talent or +2 to distribute to stats. And then finally, we've got the wizard. So 1d4 hit points. They can learn spells. They've got spell casting. Their spells known and their wizard talents. So make one random magic item. So they can check the GM guide and choose to have one magic item that they create. +2 to intelligence or +1 to wizard spell casting checks. Gain advantage on one spell. Learn one additional wizard spell of any tier they know. Choose a talent or +2 to distribute to stats. We're back to original Dungeons and Dragons, where every level has a title as you go up, and they're by the alignments as well. So a lawful, chaotic, and neutral first level fighter would be a squire, a knave, or a warrior, and it goes through all the different ones. This is somewhat nice, but I always found it kind of stupid because some of the titles you don't like. You know, what at 8th level you're a war chief and you like the sound of that, and then at level 9 you become a chieftain. But very much up to the players, and I'm not sure how much use it is in play. It's just a nice little title thing. It was always kind of fun though. With the alignment, we've just got chaotic, lawful, and neutral. Chaotic characters align themselves with destruction. They adopt a survival of the fittest mentality. Lawful characters operate from a good of the whole. Neutral characters adopting a neutral nature must take its course mentality. We've got the various languages here, including rare languages. We've got various deities in this world. We've got descriptions of all the gear, basic gear, talks about your gear slots again as it did early on. We've got a crawling kit, a basic kit you can have, which has various normal equipment in it. We've got just a few choices of armor. They give you your armor class, obviously the ability or the target number somebody needs to hit you. But when you're wearing any kind of heavier armor, so chainmail has disadvantage on stealth and swimming. Plate mail, you're not allowed to swim at all. You now have disadvantage on stealth. A shield occupies one of your hands. Mithril armor removes the penalty for stealth and swimming. So if you get it mithril plate mail, then it doesn't matter. You're not allowed to swim or get a disadvantage on stealth. Various weapons. Now, these include finesse ones. So a dagger is finesse, so you can use your dexterity or your strength for your attack. So a thief with a high dex but low strength will still get to hit very well with it. Two-handed, versatile, you can use it one or two-handed, and like the great axe here, 1d8 damage one-handed, 1d10 for two-handed. We've got the various ranges. We've got random tables of character names. Your experience levels. Now, the experience levels here are straightforward, but it's a little odd. Basically, when you're going up levels, you need the experience on here to go. So to level up, you need 10 experience to go to level 2. But once you level, your experience gets reset. So if you're needing 10 experience to go up and you have 30, well, your experience is wiped out. So you only go up one level at a time. You can't go up multiple levels. You're always reset to the start. Once you reach a new level, your total XP resets back to 0. Mentions that you get talents. So at first level, you get a plus talent. Third level, fifth level, seventh level, and ninth level, you get your increased hit points. Now we've got gameplay. So it's talking through in more detail about advantage, disadvantage, cancelling one another out. Natural 20s count on all dice rolls. So whatever roll you're making, if you roll a 20, it's a natural success. If you roll a 1, it's a failure, always. D6 decider. If there's a random chance for an outcome, such as if a drop torch goes out. So if you roll a natural 1 and the games master decides you drop your torch, he will then roll a d6 and the torch stays lit on 4 to 6, beneficial for the players. 1 to 3 is the worst outcome. So the torch goes out, the lantern breaks, whatever. We've got luck tokens. A luck token, unlike heroic inspiration in 5th edition and 1D&D, doesn't allow you to gain advantage. What it does is allow you a reroll. So if you fail, you spend your luck and you get a reroll, and you must accept that. You can only have one at a time. In heroic pulpy adventures, the games master might be handing out 3 to 5, whereas more dark, grim versions, you'll only get 1 in an adventure. It gives suggestions for what your attributes are used for. So because there's no skills, you'll be rolling directly on your attributes, and this is giving an idea what attribute, when to roll, difficulty classes, opposed checks, real time, turns and rounds, time passed, just all the basic game stuff, turn order in combat, Shadowdark, vision, light sources, total dark. You'll notice that when I went through the races, nobody has infravision, which is a nice change. I've found in playing Dungeons & Dragons these days, it really does create a division in the party, because the humans and the halflings, for example, have to carry big lanterns around to be able to see in places, and that totally destroys any chance of them sneaking. Anyway, we've got movement, regrouping, conditions, actions, resting, danger levels, campfires, all the sort of usual stuff. Stealth and surprise, combat, how it's handled, character death, terrain effects, how to cast spells. Now, it has mentioned here that if you fail when you're casting a spell, critical failure, you cannot cast that spell again until you have a rest. If you roll a natural 1 on your spellcasting check, the spell does not take effect. For wizards, if the spell was a wizard spell, you can't cast that spell again until you successfully complete a rest. You must also roll on the wizard mishap table. For priest, your deity is great disposed and revokes its power. You can't cast that spell again until you complete ritualistic penance to your deity and successfully complete a rest. So for priests, you need to rest and make a sacrifice to them, some kind of penance. And wizards, you've got the mishaps. So you have various effects here. You lose the ability to cast a random spell on each of your turns until you pass a DC 12 Constitution check. You gain the ability to cast those spells after completing a rest. So until you make a DC 12 Constitution check, you're losing spells continually. You suppress all light in the near distance from you, including sunlight and magical light, for 10 rounds, etc. How to use scrolls and wands. Spell attributes. We've got the different tiers of spells here. So just 1 and 2 basically for priests, and then the spell lists. We've got an invitation to join the Dark, the Shadowdark RPG community, a character sheet, and random character generators, so you can randomly roll up a race, a class, alignment, and what gear they start with. And then we've got the Games Master book. Now I'll fly through this because there's a lot less in this, really. There's a lot more standard games mastering stuff. So we've got random encounters, different types of treasure you might expect at different levels, NPC names by ancestry. Then we've got the introductory page, contents page, introduction. We talk through different things. The only rule is the one that you make the rules. The pact, you and your players are gaming together to have fun, prop each other up, and strengthen bonds. This is the pact. Standard DCs, challenge variety, player skill versus character skill. Lots of nice introductory role-playing stuff in here. Source of experience, how much gold to hand out, random encounters, including reaction checks to see whether creatures are hostile or friendly towards players, different types of traps and treasure. So you can roll up random traps, different hazards. Something happens, you've got random encounter tables, basically. Rumors, so your players are asking around in town about anything, you can roll it up. Very nice stuff. Ruins encounters, a bestiary of different monsters, many of these very familiar from Dungeons and Dragons. Dryads, knights, etc., kobolds, soldiers. A few pages of those, a nice introductory amount. We've got background story, then we're talking about treasure overview, so different types of treasure, going from a bent tin fork up to undersized pearls, right up to +1 magic weapons. Magic item attributes, so you can randomly create them as well by rolling them. You can have the Vicious Scroll of Blood. We've got consumables, so different potions. And then we've got some sample magic items, including Bags of Holding, Cloak of Elvenkind, obviously very familiar to you if you play Dungeons & Dragons. And then we've got a 1st to 3rd level adventure for Shadowdark, The Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur. As I said, the zip file you get along when you get these from DriveThruRPG has a better version of the map in this, but we've got the key here. I'll not loiter on any of this, I'll not spoil the adventure. Various random NPCs and creatures, again an invitation to join the Dark, a version of the map showing the Games Master where various things are, and a random table to suggest adventure names, which is kind of fun. The Crypt of the Fallen Twilight. Don't know what that means, but it's a name for a dungeon that you're going to go delving into, and could inspire some thoughts. Isle of the Savage Queen. Isn't that a Dungeons & Dragons one? No. Sounds familiar, though. Anyway, so these are the 2 Shadowdark books. As I said, it's got some elements of a more modern RPG in it, and I'm very much in favour of those. And it does have that stripped-down element of the old-school Renaissance, the OSR games. This is a nice middle ground, in my opinion. It gives you lots and lots of options on what your characters can do and how you can have everything you want out of a modern game, while being very compatible with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, so very familiar to most players, especially people coming into the hobby. But it also goes back and strips it down and allows you to have all those elements of just using your imagination. I'm very impressed with this. I'm very happy that it got suggested. I'll do a rules breakdown. Obviously, it's going to be very similar to 5th edition, and that should be out in a couple of days. But as usual, I think I've whittled on for quite long. So thank you very, very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.